Hi, it's Dr. Maggie Perry with Tell Me What You're Proud Of. On today's episode, I'm talking with Jim, and Jim and I will discuss what got him into psychotherapy and then his psychotherapy process. So thanks so much, Jim, for being on my podcast. Can you tell me what was happening before you sought out psychotherapy?
Sure. I was working in a really high industry, or high stress industry, sorry, and I was starting to struggle. Before that, I'd been in school and I had excelled there. I'd somehow managed to kind of consistently work 60 and 80-hour weeks without getting too burned out. But I was diagnosed with an illness that I think started to slow me down a good little bit, but I didn't really want to face the fact that it was slowing me down. So I started to burn out real bad in this industry after working.
Can I slow you down for a second? Can you say more about why it was hard to accept that you had the illness that you had?
Yeah. I think I had built up a lot of my identity around the idea that I was going to accomplish X, Y, and Z in my professional career, and that I was going to do so at just about any cost. And I think the reason it was hard to think about whether or not some of those things were still going to be, all of those things were still going to be possible. In light of being diagnosed, was really tough. It was I think mainly because it was scary. There was a lot of uncertainty involved around the diagnosis, so I avoided thinking about the medical condition that I have pretty regularly. So that alone made it, that alone made it so that I wasn't questioning whether or not I should continue to work at the level that I had been working at and whether that was sustainable, because I didn't think about my disease in any way. I didn't go to follow-up appointments for quite a while, and I just kind of thought, I didn't think if I ignored it, it would go away, but I couldn't. I was so uncomfortable in the uncertainty of the diagnosis and the disease that I avoided thinking about it almost entirely and just continued to push ahead.
And I can imagine that you weren't able to be in touch with yourself at all then. Like you weren't in touch with your body's needs or your mind's needs as long as you were avoiding.
Yeah, no, it was really broad. I think that's sort of the most, I think that's the most I've been sort of out of touch with myself, compared to just about any period in my life. I would just sort of do things in the evening that would just entirely numb me out so that I didn't have to think. And kind of as a result, I didn't have the kinds of connections that I would have liked to have had with, friends, family, relationship, and things like that.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like a really hard time. Why did it feel important to pursue your professional goals at any cost?
That's a good question. I think my professional goals are probably related to my upbringing in the sense that, I didn't come from a place of affluence by any measure. And from a fairly poor family in a poor part of the country. And so I wanted to get out of that. Like I really wanted to, I wanted to make enough money to basically get my entire family out of the area that I grew up in.
That's an admirable goal. When you look back on how you were trying to get there, can you tell me more about that? Or do you see it now as an admirable goal?
Yes, I do. I think there's some inflated responsibility there. Certainly at the time there was, that in other words, that I wasn't necessarily pursuing that goal and maybe talking to myself the right way about how to do it. In other words, it felt like it was a responsibility. I'm thinking of my nieces and nephews and the responsibility that I have to them. But I think that is perhaps an inflated, it's not a reasonable responsibility to take on necessarily.
Yeah, really well said. Okay. And so the combination of thinking that you had that responsibility and then being hit with a medical illness that you were avoiding, even though you couldn't avoid, was leading to burnout.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just the trying to kind of like work through the, like you can picture an athlete who twisted their ankle or something and they're trying to play through it. Like, I was trying to play through it, and yeah, you can do that for a little while, but like it's inevitable that eventually the ankle's going to give way, and that's basically what happened. Is I was really trying to play through it, but it kind of caught up with me, and I just started to be sick more and more often. So I decided to see a therapist locally before I saw you. And then it finally wound up with me leaving that part of the country and that industry, to a more calm version of roughly the same industry.
And tell me more about your decision making there.
Yeah, it was instinctual. Like I said, I still didn't have many tools for sort of dealing with um, things like perfectionism and and my aversion to certain emotions and feelings like fear. Um, so I, you know, I left my prior job and got a severance. And the question was, well, what am I going to do with this? Should I try to find another job in the same industry, or should I get the heck out of this because it's really stretching me to my limits, and I'm not sure if I can do it anymore. So it wasn't a terribly rational. I didn't make the decision on the basis of a whole lot of analysis. It was just like, I need to get out of here.